The moment my 8-year-old granddaughter, Sophie, said, "They're putting you in a nursing home and taking your savings today, Grandma Elaine," my world stopped. I was in my kitchen in Birmingham, Alabama, stirring a pot of vegetable soup, and the words hit me like a physical blow. I'm Elaine Patterson, 69 years old, and I thought I had experienced every kind of betrayal. But I was wrong. Standing in the home I've lived in for 43 years, watching Sophie color at the kitchen table while her parents were out, I realized my own son Benjamin and his wife Victoria had been plotting against me with chilling precision. "What do you mean, sweetheart?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper as my heart hammered against my ribs. Sophie looked up, her crayon still moving across the paper. "Mommy and Daddy were talking about it last night. They said you're getting too old to live by yourself, and they need to take care of your money so bad people don't steal it." She paused, picking a purple crayon. "Daddy said something about papers and a judge, and Mommy was really excited about finally getting to buy that big house she wants." The room spun. I gripped the counter, my knuckles white as I processed what she had just said. For months, Benjamin and Victoria had been acting concerned about my declining mental state, even though I managed my finances, maintained my home, and volunteered at the local literacy center 3 days a week. Their sudden attention had felt suspicious, but I'd convinced myself I was being paranoid. Now, I understood the truth. They weren't concerned about me at all. They were trying to have me declared incompetent so they could get their hands on my $1.2 million estate. The thought made my stomach churn with a mix of rage and heartbreak. This was my son, the boy I had raised alone after his father died. I worked 2 jobs to put him through college and sacrificed my own dreams to ensure he had every opportunity. "You okay, Grandma?" Sophie's voice broke through my thoughts. I forced a smile, though inside I felt shattered. "I'm fine, honey. Keep coloring." But I wasn't fine. I was furious. And more importantly, I was determined. If they thought they could manipulate a confused old woman, they were about to discover how sharp my mind truly was. As Sophie continued to color, my mind raced, connecting the dots from the last 6 months. Benjamin's sudden interest in my occasional memory lapses when I misplaced my keys. Victoria's pointed comments about the burden of maintaining a large house, their questions about my financial advisor, my attorney, and my will. The most chilling realization was how calculated their approach had been. Benjamin, an insurance claims investigator, knew exactly how competency hearings worked. Victoria, a former medical office manager, knew the right medical professionals to consult for favorable evaluations. Together, they had been building a case against me while pretending to be a loving family. I thought back to last week when Benjamin insisted on coming with me to my doctor's appointment. At the time, I was touched. Now, I realized he was probably trying to plant seeds of doubt about my mental capacity with Dr. Harrison. The way he interrupted me, finishing my sentences and suggesting I was confused about my medications, suddenly took on a sinister meaning. Victoria's behavior made sense now, too. She had offered multiple times to help me organize my paperwork, claiming she wanted to ensure all my important documents were safely stored. When I declined, she pressed harder, suggesting that keeping track of bills and investments was becoming too stressful for me. The cruelest part was how they had used Sophie. My granddaughter was encouraged to report back about Grandma's confusion. I remembered Sophie mentioning her parents asked if I forgot things or repeated myself. They had turned an innocent child into an unwitting spy against her own grandmother. What broke my heart the most was realizing their recent family dinners and weekend visits were not motivated by love. Every moment of closeness was manufactured to gather intelligence for their legal case. Benjamin's suggestion that I sign updated documents for my safety now revealed itself as an attempt to trick me into signing papers that would make their legal theft easier. But they had made one crucial mistake. They underestimated me. I hadn't built a successful consulting business and accumulated significant wealth by being naive. If they wanted to play hardball, This grandmother was more than ready. The irony was that their greed and eagerness to share their plans led them to reveal everything to the one person who would never keep their secrets, an 8-year-old child who trusted her grandmother completely. I realized I had about 3 hours before Benjamin and Victoria returned. I knew they were likely finalizing arrangements with the nursing home and preparing whatever legal documents they planned to ambush me with. The timeline was tight, but I had spent my career handling crises under pressure. My first call was to Patricia Wong, my attorney and one of the smartest legal minds I knew. "Patricia, I need your help immediately," I said, explaining Sophie's revelation. "They're planning to have me declared incompetent, probably as early as today." Her response was swift. "Elaine, we need to establish an irrevocable trust right now. How quickly can you get to my office?" "I can't leave." "They'll be back soon," I said. "Then we'll do this over the phone and fax. I'm preparing the documents now. You'll need to transfer your major assets into a trust with Sophie as the primary beneficiary. Once it's irrevocable, Benjamin and Victoria can't touch those funds, even if they somehow succeed with their competency case." My next call was to Robert Kim, my financial advisor. "Robert, I need to execute some emergency transfers today. How quickly can we move my investments into a different structure?" "Elaine, we can have most of your holdings transferred within 2 hours. What exactly are we protecting against?" I explained the situation, and Robert's professional calm cracked slightly. "That's unconscionable. Let me start the paperwork immediately. We'll move everything into the trust structure your attorney is creating." While Sophie hummed quietly over her coloring book, I systematically dismantled my son's inheritance expectations. The house deed was transferred into the trust. My investment accounts were moved beyond their reach. Even my checking and savings accounts were restructured, so any court order they obtained would find them nearly empty. My final call was to my neighbor, Joyce Martinez, a retired social worker. "Joyce, I need a witness to come over in about an hour, and I might need you to take Sophie home to her parents if things get complicated." "Of course, honey. What's going on?" "My family is about to learn that underestimating a grandmother is a very expensive mistake." As I hung up, I looked at Sophie, still coloring peacefully. In 2 hours, her innocent revelation would save my independence and teach her parents a lesson. The documents arrived by courier at 3:30 p.m., 45 minutes before Benjamin and Victoria were scheduled to return. As I signed the final papers with Joyce as my witness, I felt a mix of sadness and grim satisfaction. "Elaine, are you sure about this?" Joyce asked. "My son is planning to have me declared mentally incompetent so he can steal my money and put me in a nursing home. This isn't just about protecting my assets. It's about protecting my dignity and my granddaughter's future." Joyce's expression hardened. "What they're planning is criminal. Have you considered involving adult protective services? First, I want them to experience the consequences of their greed. Then, we'll see." I folded the documents and placed them in my desk drawer. For now, I want them to walk into their own trap. At 4:15 p.m., I heard Benjamin's car pull into the driveway. Victoria carried a thick manila folder, and Benjamin had a clipboard with official-looking papers. They walked with the confidence of people who believed they held all the cards. Sophie looked up as they entered. "Mommy, Daddy, Grandma, and I made cookies, and I told her about your surprise." Victoria's face went pale. "What surprise, sweetie?" "About the nursing home and taking Grandma's money. You said it was a secret, but Grandma makes the best cookies when she's happy, so I thought she should know early." The silence was deafening. Benjamin and Victoria exchanged a look of pure panic while I smiled serenely from my armchair. Joyce, still at the kitchen table, watched with professional interest. "Hello, Benjamin." "Victoria," I said, my voice warm and grandmotherly. "Sophie tells me you have some interesting plans to discuss." Benjamin recovered first. "Mom, we need to talk." We've been concerned about your ability to live independently, and we found a wonderful facility where you'll receive proper care." "How thoughtful of you." I gestured to the folder. "Are those the commitment papers?" Victoria's composure cracked. "Elaine, you don't understand. The house is too much for you. Your finances are becoming complicated. We're trying to protect you." "From people who might take advantage?" I asked. "People like yourselves?" The question hung in the air. Benjamin sat down his clipboard. "Mother, I know this is difficult, but we've consulted with medical professionals. There are concerns about your cognitive function that need to be addressed through proper legal channels." "I see. And I suppose those proper legal channels involve having me declared incompetent so you can access my $1.2 million estate?" I watched their faces as I spoke, the exact amount. "Did you think I didn't know what I was worth, Benjamin?" Victoria's mask finally slipped completely. "We're not trying to steal anything. We're trying to ensure your money is properly managed before you lose it all to confusion or scammers. The only scammers I see are standing in my living room attempting to defraud an elderly woman with the help of falsified medical evaluations and forged documents." Benjamin's face flushed as he saw his carefully constructed plan unraveling. "Mom, you're being paranoid. We would never try to hurt you. This is about keeping you safe." "Safe from what, exactly?" I stood up, feeling stronger and more determined than I had in years. "I manage my finances, maintain my home, volunteer regularly, and have been mentally sharp enough to see through your scheme for months. The only thing I need protection from is my own family's greed." Victoria stepped forward, her voice desperate. "You can't just dismiss our concerns. We've spent months researching the best care options for you. We've invested time and money into finding solutions for your declining condition." "My declining condition?" I laughed, a sound with no warmth. "You mean the condition you and Benjamin have been fabricating? The memory lapses you've been documenting? The confusion you've been reporting to medical professionals?" Benjamin tried a different approach, his voice pleading. "Mom, even if you disagree with our methods, you have to admit that managing a large estate is stressful. Wouldn't it be easier to let us handle the financial responsibilities while you focus on enjoying your retirement?" "Enjoying my retirement in a nursing home you've selected," I shot back, "while you enjoy spending my money on the house Victoria has been dreaming about." I walked to my desk and retrieved the trust documents. "I'm afraid that plan has encountered a significant obstacle." Joyce stood up from the kitchen table, ready to support me. Sophie continued coloring, completely unaware of the drama unfolding around her. "What obstacle?" Victoria demanded, her composure completely shattered. I held up the documents. "The obstacle of an attorney who works quickly and a grandmother who isn't nearly as confused as you hoped she would be." Benjamin snatched the papers, his face turning from red to ashen as he read. "This can't be legal. You can't just give away our inheritance." "Your inheritance?" My voice turned ice cold. "Benjamin, these assets were never yours. They were mine to do with as I chose, and I chose to protect them from children who plan to steal them through legal manipulation." Victoria grabbed the papers, her hands shaking. "The house, the investments, everything is gone. How is that possible?" "It's possible because while you were out making final arrangements to commit me against my will, I was making arrangements to ensure my granddaughter's future is secure from her parents' greed." I sat back down, feeling a deep satisfaction. "Every asset you plan to steal is now in an irrevocable trust with Sophie as the primary beneficiary." "This is insane!" Victoria screamed, throwing the papers onto my coffee table. "You can't just disinherit your own family because of some misunderstanding." "Misunderstanding?" Joyce spoke for the first time. "I'm a retired social worker, and what you two planned constitutes elder abuse. There's no misunderstanding about stealing someone's independence and assets through fraudulent competency proceedings." Benjamin's professional training finally kicked in. "Mom, we can work this out. We can find a compromise that makes everyone happy." The time for compromise ended when you decided to treat me like an incompetent obstacle to your financial goals rather than your mother. Victoria's desperation reached a crescendo. You don't understand. We've already made commitments based on accessing that money. We put a down payment on a house. Benjamin quit his job because we thought we'd be managing your estate. You quit your job. I stared at my son in disbelief. You were so confident in your ability to steal my assets that you quit your job before you even succeeded? Benjamin's face crumpled as he realized how thoroughly they had miscalculated. It wasn't stealing, Mom. It was planning for the future. We knew you'd eventually need care, and we wanted to be prepared to provide it. By having me declared mentally incompetent? By committing me to a nursing home against my will? By taking control of assets I spent 40 years building? My voice rose with each question. Benjamin, you were 12 when your father died. I worked 2 jobs to put you through college. I sacrificed my own comfort to ensure you had every opportunity. And this is how you repay that sacrifice? Sophie looked up, sensing the tension. Why is everyone yelling? Did I do something wrong by telling Grandma about the surprise? The innocent question cut through the room. They realized their own daughter had exposed them because they were careless enough to discuss their plans in front of her. Their greed had made them sloppy, and now an 8-year-old child had destroyed months of careful preparation. No, sweetheart, I said gently. You did exactly the right thing by telling Grandma the truth. Honesty is always the best choice. Benjamin made one final, desperate attempt to salvage the situation. Mom, please, let's sit down and discuss this rationally. We can undo the trust. We can find a solution that works for everyone. The trust is irrevocable, Benjamin. Even if I wanted to undo it, which I don't, it's legally impossible. Every asset you plan to steal is now permanently beyond your reach. I picked up the commitment papers he had brought. Were you planning to have me sign these today? Or were you going to forge my signature like I suspect you've done on other documents? Victoria burst into tears. We're going to lose everything. The house deposit, Benjamin's job, our credit rating. How are we supposed to explain this to Sophie? Perhaps you should explain it the same way you explained your plan to steal from her grandmother, Joyce suggested coldly. Children deserve honesty about their parents' character. I stood up and walked to my front door, opening it wide. I think it's time for you to leave. Sophie can stay here tonight if she wants, or Joyce can drive her home when you've had time to process this situation. Benjamin gathered the useless papers, his hands shaking. This isn't over, Mom. We can challenge the trust. We can prove you were coerced or confused when you signed it. By all means, challenge it. Patricia Wong would love to depose you both about your plan to commit fraud against an elderly family member. I'm sure that legal discovery process will be fascinating for everyone involved. I maintained my position by the open door. You have 30 seconds to leave my property before I call the police to report an attempted elder abuse scheme. They left, without another word. Victoria was still crying, and Benjamin stared straight ahead with the expression of a man who had just watched his future crumble. As their car pulled away, Sophie looked up at me with wide eyes. Grandma, are Mommy and Daddy in trouble? Yes, sweetheart, but sometimes people have to face consequences when they make very bad choices. The next morning, I let a series of frantic phone calls go to voicemail. Benjamin's voice grew desperate with each message, while Victoria's calls devolved into angry, demands that I fix this mess immediately. By noon, they appeared at my door again, this time with a new strategy. Mom, we've spoken with our attorney, Benjamin announced, his voice artificially calm. He believes the trust can be challenged, on grounds of undue influence. Patricia Wong clearly took advantage of your emotional state. I invited them in with a smile. How interesting. And what does your attorney think about your plan to have me declared incompetent through falsified medical evaluations? Victoria's composure was already cracking. We never falsified anything. We had legitimate concerns about your mental state, Concerns you documented by coaching Sophie to report my supposed confusion. Concerns you supported by interrupting my doctor's appointments to suggest I was becoming incompetent. I pulled out a folder I had prepared overnight. Fortunately, I've been documenting your behavior as well. Benjamin's face went pale as I showed them photographs of documents they had left behind, recordings of conversations where they discussed my supposed declining condition, and a detailed timeline of their activities. Patricia helped me compile quite an impressive case for attempted elder fraud, I continued. We have enough evidence to pursue criminal charges, not just civil litigation. You recorded us? That's illegal, Victoria screamed. Not when it's done to protect myself from family members planning to commit crimes against me. Alabama law is very clear about self-defense recordings in cases of suspected elder abuse. Benjamin realized they were completely outmaneuvered. What do you want from us, Mom? I want you to understand that your greed has cost you everything. Sophie's college fund is secure, but your inheritance is gone forever. Your attempt to steal from me has backfired spectacularly. The beautiful irony was that their scheme was so elaborate and calculated that it provided perfect evidence of their criminal intent. Joyce arrived just as they were about to leave, bringing with her a representative from Adult Protective Services and a detective who specialized in elder fraud cases. The timing was perfect, though I hadn't orchestrated their arrival. Mrs. Patterson, Detective Williams introduced himself. We received a report about a potential elder abuse case involving attempted financial exploitation. Victoria's face went from red to white in seconds. This is harassment. We were trying to help Elaine. By having her declared incompetent so you could access her assets. Detective Williams consulted his notes. We've reviewed the evidence Mrs. Patterson provided, including recordings of conversations where you discussed your plan to commit her against her will. Benjamin tried to assert some control. We haven't broken any laws. We were concerned about our mother's welfare and explored legal options for ensuring her care. Legal options that included falsifying reports about her mental condition and attempting to trick her into signing documents that would facilitate your access to her assets. The Adult Protective Services representative spoke up. Mr. Patterson, attempted financial exploitation of an elderly person is a felony in Alabama. I watched my son's face as he realized their carefully planned scheme had not only failed, but had exposed them to serious criminal liability. Victoria began crying again, understanding that their financial ruin was now compounded by potential jail time. The irony, I said quietly, is that if you had simply been honest about your financial problems, I might have been willing to help. Instead, your greed has cost you everything, including your relationship with Sophie and your standing in this family. Detective Williams handed Benjamin a card. You'll want to contact an attorney. We'll be filing charges by the end of the week. As they were escorted out, I felt a profound sense of justice served and protection secured. Benjamin and Victoria faced devastating consequences that extended far beyond their failed inheritance grab. The criminal charges for attempted elder fraud resulted in felony convictions that destroyed Benjamin's career in insurance and made Victoria unemployable in any position requiring financial trust. Their early withdrawal from Benjamin's retirement, accounts to fund their premature house purchase, created massive tax penalties they couldn't afford to pay. Their marriage crumbled under the financial pressure and mutual blame, leading to a bitter divorce where Sophie chose to live primarily with me rather than with parents who had proven themselves willing to exploit family members for money. The social stigma of their scheme made them outcasts in our community. As I tucked Sophie into bed in what was now her permanent room in my house, I reflected on how their greed had inadvertently given me the greatest gift possible: full custody of my granddaughter and the chance to raise her with values they had, clearly, never learned. Looking back, I realized that sometimes the most important inheritance we can leave is not money, but the lesson that wisdom, preparation, and strategic thinking will always triumph over greed, and the foolish assumption that age equals vulnerability.